All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Women, Wine, and Song, the podcast. I have with me Chantil. Am I saying that right?
Chantil. Yeah.
Chantil?
Yeah.
Okay, see, that's one of the things I meant to talk about before this part. That's okay. You're going to tell us about yourself anyway. So say your name the right way since I'm a dope, and then let's hear a little bit about you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Chantil, and I'm a artist here in Denver, and I play jazz and funk music, and I play piano and sing and write songs.
Rad. When did you start? Like, I mean, I guess what instrument did you start with first? Do you play multiple instruments or do you sing?
So I started on piano. That's like my home base. And I started playing when there was a lady renting my parents' basement, and she was a piano tuner, and she gave my family an old piano that was going to be thrown away from like a theater, and she tuned it up for the family. And I just was obsessed from day one, started writing songs when I was 7, and I just never stopped. So
that's so cool. I love the synchronicity. Like it feels almost meant to be. Like,
yeah,
that doesn't happen all the time.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe because nobody in my immediate family plays music, and it's such an integral part of who I am. Like, I can't imagine, like, if that lady didn't live in our basement. I mean, it's kind of like the circumstances, like, what if your grandparents never met? Like, I just can't fathom who I would be if I didn't have music, because it's just like people ask if you love music or ask me if I love music, but to me that's like asking, like, do you love breathing? Like, it's so much a part of me that it's like I can't. Love is like an understatement, you know.
Yeah, I love that because I mean, I've met people who like don't like music, like don't listen to music at all, and it's just like my head doesn't understand it. It's very confusing. And I mean, surely they have their own outlets or whatever, but it's just music is so like it goes so far back in human history that it's like, wow, how could you not connect?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's really due to just music being a creative process that you're actually creating. Now, we're getting deep real quick here, but I actually believe, if you believe in God or anything like that, that like, so you could say that, but there's God in all of us, right?
Yeah.
And to me, the act of creating, like, that's what quote unquote God did, right? He created the universe or whatever.
Sure.
So to me, like, it's us enacting our God selves when we are creating, because that's what God is the act of creating.
I just got goosebumps. That's so good because I mean, I know maybe a lot of people wouldn't connect to what you just said, but like to me that resonates like deeply, that we are creators and we're the universe, like the universe created multiple versions of itself so we could experience, like, so that the universe could experience itself basically. And
Totally.
so
I mean, yeah, I'm with you.
It's huge. And I've always wondered about like, sound healing and everything is obviously a thing, but I wonder that from such a young age, like how does music move us to like feel so emotional when we experience it, And I mean, do you ever contemplate that?
Well, I am a very emotional person, and I write um I had a couple different writing processes, but usually when I'm writing a banging song, it's because somebody fucked up. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
like,
Yep.
and I'm writing from an emotional space. And some of my best songs I wrote about guys will probably, never date again and stuff.
Totally.
And there's a reason for that. And but it's like, for me, it's a way to process my emotions, and it's cool actually to go back and see like the hundreds of songs I've written, because it's almost an archive of my emotional development, because I go back to songs I was writing 5-10 years ago, and I'm like, oh, like, okay, your ideas were cute then, but
Yeah,
like,
little baby me. Like I'm sure you grow exponentially, like being able to watch it, that's so different. Most people aren't writing down how they're
yeah.
feeling
And
every day.
I have I teach as well, and I do have some younger students and I that are writing, and I beg them, I'm like, record your work. And they're like, oh, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, don't be embarrassed. It's just a sliver of moment. It's just you at that moment. It's not all encompassing. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece, but document your journey because your 20 or 30-year-old self will thank you for that later because it's an incredible tool to have to be able to go reference back to who you were then. Same reason why journaling is very powerful because you can go and be like, damn, I was saying the same things 2 years ago. Okay, time to make a change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes.
So
I love
yeah,
that. I started journaling for the first time last year, actually, and went a whole year and did it and like filled it all out. Like, and it's incredible, just like your growth, like it almost propels you to grow faster, when you're looking at it under a microscope like that, when you are writing it down and paying attention. Um, I guess not to get too existential.
I
um,
know. Too late.
I'm about it, but I always have to think about that too. Like, okay, this podcast is about music.
Yes.
Don't
Okay.
start. No, it's really not. That's why I love it, is because it's open and it like we get to learn more about you and what makes up the music industry, which oftentimes is women. So I guess where this show started out was 2020. It was a shit show. Obviously, it was the middle of summer, like after George Floyd was murdered, and
Yeah.
it was just like, Bass Nectar stuff was coming out. It was just like all sorts of terrible stuff, and it seemed like no one knew how to have a conversation about it, like without arguing, name calling, like can we just
Yeah.
have a real conversation, And
I
so
think it's really important, and I'm really glad you're doing it because I have realized that being a woman in the music industry is very difficult for reasons on many different levels.
absolutely.
And it's cool that you have focused your podcast around that. I think it's really awesome.
I try, but I still like to talk about witchy shit all the time. So
Oh yeah,
but so the framework was originally, and I let it grow away from what it started out as, but it was just finding out about women's triumphs, but also their traumas and their evolution in the music community. So do any of those three things kind of strike you to talk about?
yeah. I mean, it's kind of a Pandora's box, and I'm trying to decide which way to approach it. But I will say that it is being a woman and like discovering what that means to me as an artist has been a long journey because I grew up, and some of the earliest things I remember is people being like, oh, you play really good for a girl, that kind of thing. And so that I was always had a chip on my shoulder, I think, to prove myself harder than other people because I felt like people always underestimated me because I was a woman. And I think there's so many subtle biases that we don't realize, and people probably don't even consciously understand that they're doing it. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I don't want to like demonize men because I think the relationship between men and women has gotten very tense, and like the world has almost become, especially with the Me Too movement and stuff like this, which is great that people are speaking their truths. But it also has created this like cringe effect for a lot of men that they don't know how to express themselves because they're afraid to offend someone. And it's kind of like robbed people of their masculinity also, which I also want to like protect men's right to be men as well. But also like women have been obviously suppressed for a long time. And there's a quote that always stuck with me, which is, women are the only oppressed group of people that are intimately associated with their oppressors. So what it means by that is, it's something that permeates your relationships with your father, your brothers, your uncles, your cousins, your boyfriend, your husband, whatever, and it's like there's all these subtle dynamics that go on Um, and it could be as simple as, women just being quiet. They don't want to be seen as bossy or loud. Like, it's just the same way, a man who's outspoken will be seen as confident and a leader, and a woman who's outspoken might be perceived as pushy,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it runs so deep. That's why we have to be able to have the conversations with a level head, right? Because I mean,
Right,
that's a big problem with cancel culture, is just that if you cancel someone, you're not giving them the opportunity to learn and grow. You're
right.
just shutting them down and maybe building like some kind of animosity in them then, and the people that love that person that like didn't see that ugly side of them, maybe, or the side, I don't know. And it's not, it's a balance, because you can't forget, like you can't not forgive. I feel like forgiveness is a thing that we should all work to achieve for the most part, but
For sure.
some situations obviously bear more weight than others, but
For sure.
overall we need to be able to talk to each other without shouting down at one another if we want anyone to learn or grow. And we need that balance of masculine and feminine. If either one is out of balance, it's no good for anyone.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. So back to the music thing, always growing up, like I was a tomboy, you know what I mean? And I loved to play football and I was always like one of the guys. And then only once I was actually in my 20s, I started reconnecting with the feminine side of my personality. And that has been very healing for me, like just to explore like the subtle gracefulness that female perspective brings to aesthetics. Like it's just more subtle, and it's like the difference between like sensual versus sexual. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, why we need to kind of embrace more women artists, because it's like if you live in a world that, like, a lot of shows I go to are all dudes on stage, like 5 acts, and
Yep.
it's all dudes. And I'm like, there's part of the picture is missing when you don't have women on stage
Right.
bringing. And I see it when I play with a band too. Like I'll come in as a woman, being the only girl on stage, and it changes the whole dynamic. People play differently when there's a woman present. They
Yeah.
play more sensitively at, you know, and I think that's necessary. It makes people play better,
Yeah,
you
and pay
know.
more attention, I feel like, too. Even as a like crowd member, I think the second a woman gets on the stage, I'm like, hell yeah, there's a woman up there. Because it's never, it's such a bummer that it's not more common. I think it is becoming more common, but
It is. And I think we're making a lot of progress. Like people get really like negative about the whole situation. I mean, in the bigger scheme of human history, we're doing fine.
yeah,
We're making a lot of progress. People
yeah,
have more rights than they ever had. And, and
yeah.
it's not perfect. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done, but I think we're headed in a good direction. And as long as, again, we don't like embrace like cancel culture, and like we can grow and evolve
Yeah.
together as a society, I think that people make great music.
Yeah, exactly.
Circle back.
Right. Well, that's what I found too, is that a lot of women, like, they don't have, I don't know, I feel very lucky to have like a strong group of female friends that I have. We're tight knit. We, like, go to each other about everything, but it seems like that's rare anymore. And I think maybe it's because we were kind of raised against each other. We're always like competing. We didn't subconsciously know that like the whole culture we live in, it was pitting us against each other. And
I
so,
wonder why that is, because I had that experience growing up. Even my best friend, we competed for men or guys. They were boys. I mean, at that time we're little, but I
yeah.
mean, highly competitive. And I do think that women embracing other women is one of the strongest things that we can do at this phase, just to help secure those networks so that people don't feel so isolated, which, I definitely like wish I had more girlfriends, to be honest, because, yeah.
It's hard to connect with the men sometimes, and it's not that they're doing anything wrong, it's just that our brains function differently. Our whole bodies, our whole beings are a different system, you know? So like you can't, I mean, surely there's an exception to every rule, but for the most part, it can be hard to relate to even some of your closest male friends if they're not on the same wavelength about a certain subject, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What has been one of the harder things you've experienced just as like trying to get, I don't know, garner success in the music community?
Um, hmm, that's interesting. I would say the biggest thing that I'm still kind of trying to restructure in my approach to my career would be having a team, because I've kind of been like lone wolf for a long time, doing all my own booking, you know, never had a manager. I've always had my own bands, like, so I was writing all the songs. And I definitely feel like if you have a team of people, or somebody else just in your corner, that even two people can accomplish so much more than just one. And so that's like kind of where I'm at right now. Like I've, been doing shows, for a long time, and I just want to like kind of level up and restructure my approach, because like the whole doing it yourself thing can be very exhausting.
It's super exhausting. And I like do a minimal amount of it for this show, you know.
Mhm.
This is only episode 29, but it's still like, oh shit, I gotta post on this page and this page and this page, and I need to edit this video, and you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, I need to send this email today, and I need to, it's just hard to stay on top of all that alone for sure. You know, like I can't imagine. I don't know. I just started working in booking and management in the last few years, but I mean, I'm like, how do people do this before help? You know, it's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is. It's kind of, yeah, that's definitely like where I'm trying to go this year. And I'm working on an album right now, so I'm trying to like, once that's done, schlang at it. So I'm like try to get some festivals and stuff, and just because I've done a lot of what you would call like, I've done a, a lot of festivals and traveled and done cool shows, but a lot of like being a working musician is not as glamorous as people think it is.
right.
I'm doing a lot of gigs. So there's like shows and gigs. And, gigs are places where you're maybe playing for a lot of, people who are not paying attention, or, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Like a
And
brewery or something. Yeah.
brewery, restaurant, hotel, lobby, corporate events. Like, and the thing is, it's, some of the shows that, the best shows you want to play are not the ones that pay the bills. And then some of the, like, what I would call like more, it's becomes, it's work. You're still playing music and it's fun and awesome. But like, there's, something I've noticed maybe in American culture, that audiences sometimes don't understand the social contract between like a performer and the audience. Like, even if I personally think if you're in a brewery or something, yeah, you're there to chill with your friends and drink a beer, whatever. But I still think it's like respectful after the song's over to clap, or just
Yeah.
acknowledge that something happened and now it's over. And it's just like those tiny things, like even a couple people clapping in the audience lets the performer know that, okay, I'm not alone, and so they can keep on investing their soul into what they're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like you almost like shut down and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and you have to like go into your own little world
Plow
to
through
protect
it.
yourself. Yeah, and like so I'm definitely trying to do more shows where people are there for the music and less gigs, but those are like, you know, steps
Yeah.
up.
Exposure or, whatever. There, you have to find, there's always some reason or not that you take the gig, right? Like, or the show is what you hope for, right? But like, I don't know, gigs, there's such a weird area to navigate. Like, is this one worth it? Is this one, the pay is good, but the crowd's not going to be paying any, what would you prefer? Would you prefer like a really good paying gig where no one's paying attention, or like a mediocre show where everyone's paying attention but it's not super full, it's not super well paying?
At this point, I would rather play for a receptive audience because I just do enough gigs. I don't need more money. I need people to like emotionally be present.
Yeah, well, it shows are an energetic exchange. I think, like, I'm not a musician, right? I did choir in high school and that's pretty much the extent of it, but um music is, like you said, it's like breathing to me. Like it's just so prominent in my life. And shit, I always do that. I have to derail myself one time, but that's what it is. It's an energetic exchange, and the better the, like, the better the reaction from the crowd, the harder oftentimes the band starts playing because they're loving that energy, and then the crowd gets more amped, and it just
Yeah.
cycles, and it's so good.
Yeah, and that's how it should be. It
Yeah.
isn't really on a basic human level to go meta again. It's just an energy exchange. So I always tell audiences sometimes at these like breweries and stuff, I'm like, the more energy you give us, the more we'll give back. Because I think sometimes people forget, you
Right.
know.
Right. Give us a shout, y'all. Come in. Oh man. Okay, I'm trying to think. We covered the harder oh, that's what I wanted to ask you. What has been how have you been navigating the last 2 years between like cancellations and postponements and
Yeah, so
boundaries and
yeah, great question. I still remember the day that everything got canceled, and it made me realize how vulnerable the gig economy is. People who do project-based work, musicians, servers, like the whole, there was some communities that were just super affected by what happened, like a lot of my friends were like, oh, I get to work from home now. This is great. Like, and like
right.
other people are like, all my work just got canceled. I was able to adapt quickly. I was DJing at a radio station, which I still do. And I was able to transfer some of my students to Zoom lessons for the time being. And then I also tried to make it a fun thing. And so when the pandemic first started, I put a notice out to all my social media that if somebody wanted to hire me to write a song for somebody that they love, that they can't see, like a grandma that's, lonely and whatever, I let people hire me to write songs for people just as something to like stimulate conversation and keep people's spirits up. And I ended up doing maybe 7 or 10 songs for different people. And it was cool. I got to write one for like a scuba diver in Australia, one for somebody's little grandma in Colombia. And I wrote this whole series of songs for people. And I think it really was emotional for some people, like somebody who gave a song to their mom who they couldn't see. And it was just kind of, just rolling with the punches and just trying to be like, how can I flip this into something positive? And
Yeah, that's
yeah.
super cool. Like that's a really rad idea. I don't know if I know anyone who is doing that. I mean, some of the bigger bands are doing like cameos where they'd like record themselves saying hi to whoever, but like to actually write a song is, I feel like, so much more meaningful. Like it's not just a hi, it's a like someone sat down and like dumped some of their creativity into this page so that you can, I don't know. That's so cool. How did you have a process like where you asked them questions about the person, or did they just like send you what they thought was relevant?
Yeah, I would kind of prod them and ask them to tell me what made that person meaningful to them, any like core memories, like funny stories, anecdotes. And it was very cool to see the way people expressed how they feel about whatever person. Because obviously, if you're paying someone to write a song for someone, they obviously are very important to you. So
Yeah.
even I think them having to explain why that person was important to them, like already like made this cool like emotional exchange. And yeah, it was just kind of beautiful to write songs from somebody else's perspective, because most of the songs I write are from my perspective, right?
Right.
So it's like I had to put myself in somebody else's shoes and try to like imagine what their life was like, and try to um, embrace or find the essence of what the emotion would be for that person. You
Yeah.
know,
That's so
definitely got
cool.
a couple tears out of some
I
folks.
bet. I bet. Oh, my mom would lose her shit, I think. Actually, my mom's a weird one. She's hard to purchase for.
Oh, yeah, my mom just, it's hard to shop for her because she knows what she wants and she just
Right.
buys it for herself.
Exactly. It must be a mom thing. Man, well, I don't want to eat up your whole afternoon. It's Friday. I bet you have a lot going on this weekend.
Oh yeah, no, today's a pretty chill day, and I'm really happy that you and I were able to connect. And thank you so much for having me on. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And I'll share. Wait, so really quick, tell everyone you have a new album coming out. Can you say the name of it or when?
Yeah, it's called Lady and the Champ, and it's kind of again about what we were talking about earlier, like the feminine and masculine, and those two energies being like two forces that kind of work together. And yeah, it's kind of about me embracing both sides of my personality, the more like badass side and then like the gentle side, and like how they work together. So
Cool. And when is it coming out?
oh, I would say in 2 or 3 months. We're
Rad.
still recording right now. I'm recording it at Violet Studio in Boulder, and
Cool.
I've got some really dope Denver musicians that I can't say right now that are going to be on it, but it's
Nice.
going to be super lit. So I'm stoked.
Cool. Yeah, I look forward to it. So this summer we can look forward to Lady and the Champ. And I will share all your social media stuff in the bio. But thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you too. It's
Uh,
great to meet you.
yeah.
And I hope to talk in the future.
Yeah, more girlfriends for sure. I'm here for it. We need to hang. See ya.